Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the Challenger again. If you're interested in automotive restorations, stick around. So the time has come to do something with these horrible long tube headers that Darren loves. And we are going to get them cleaned up, prepped with some of the Eastwood high temp paint. This stuff here, the nice satin black. And then we're actually going to wrap these as well with some of this stuff, the DEI header pipe wrap tape. So we're going to go ahead and just get right into it. We're going to start by cleaning up these headers. Yeah, they're going to get a scuff before we go ahead and paint them, so let's just kind of get that done. Alrighty, so rather than bore you with the details of sitting here with the Scotch-Brite pad and scuffing these up, I'm just going to go ahead and do it and come back when it's time for more fun stuff like paint.
Eventually.
Alrighty, well we've gone ahead and just lightly cleaned off the surface crud from both of our headers, took some 120 sanding paper, just knocked the chunks off, cleaned them up with some brake clean. And now we're going to go ahead and drop on some of the Eastwood high temp coating. Pretty simple process. I've got a bag of chip brushes from the home store. So you can put on 1, 2, 3 coats, however many you want to. Brushes, toss them away when you're done, and not a big deal. So let's go ahead and get a coat brush on here and see how it looks. Now there's no big trick here with this. I'm just starting in one place arbitrarily and putting on the paint, then I'll flip it over. Sure someone will have a comment, oh, I'm putting the paint on wrong or doing this wrong or whatever, but you know what? This will work for us, and we are, again, wrapping these with the DEI header wrap. So we are not gonna have a, perfectly smooth finish on these pipes, doesn't matter. Just something to protect them a little bit more from the elements and pretty up the engine bay just a little bit from those areas where they do stick out from the wrap. Not too many places, but it doesn't hurt to dress it up where we can. I'm getting a little liberal down here in these crevices and cracks, but also trying to be mindful of watching for drips or runs anywhere that I can visibly see. It doesn't make sense to do a poor job on it if it can be helped. All right, let me go ahead and just get this wrapped up. We'll come back and see how it looks with the first coat. Alrighty, so we've got our first coat on there. I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna put on a second coat, just make sure I've got full coverage everywhere, at least that I can get to with the brush. And then we're gonna be ready to go ahead and get the wrap going. Now, I've gone I'll probably be a little over a half of this container used by the time we're said and done with both of the headers. So again, if you're using a brush, this small, pint size should be plenty good for you with these type of headers, long tube, regular headers, whatever. If you're using a gun, you can thin this down a little bit and spray it. Not sure what you're going to get for coverage on there, but for me, using the brush was the way to go, and it's looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and get this one finished up, ready to wrap, and then we'll come back just like that. Alrighty, we have gone ahead and let our paint dry on here. Been a couple of days actually, but we've got our new roll of DEI header wrap, and basically figure it out for your own headers. Depending on how they're shaped, how you want to wrap them. Some people wrap from the bottom up, some people wrap from the top down. At the end, I do want to take the last pipe and start at the base here, or the top, whichever you prefer, just so that you wrap the other three tubes into the collector here, and everything tidies up nice and finished on either end. I've seen it done both ways. If you look it up online, other videos, you can see it done from the bottom, from the top, however gets it done to your liking. And they do include these little metal straps. I don't like them. They don't seem to be very strong. So where needed, I'm going to put some just pipe clamps on, like that's going to be down here by the big one for sure. I got a 3-inch or 4-inch clamp to put on here. Otherwise, we'll just start wrapping away here. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. Some people will take a big loop and run the whole thing around their desired, to their length. Some people will try and kind of pre-measure how many winds you will need and figure more than you actually think you're going to need, because you're going to need more than you think you need. Also, a recommendation is to go ahead and dip it in water. It helps make this a little more pliable. So let's just stop talking. What I'm going to do first, I think I'm going to get this staple out of here. So I'm going to start with this first tube right here and work my way up. Now it is a little bit difficult, as you can see in here. There's not a lot of clearance, so you're going to have to be careful in how you feed your fabric through to get it around. And sometimes you may have to wrap multiple pipes together. And if you do, just make sure you're not heavily overlapping wrap. You don't want to have excess heat in certain areas and less in other areas. So yeah, we're just going to start wrapping, and I'm not going to be able to get all the way down here because the pipes are touching. So that's where we'll take our final wrap and kind of get this whole bundle from here back. But from now, I'm just going to try and, I can't really get you in there too well either. So this one's just going to be a pain. Well, let me find one that may be a little easier to start with, because this one I'm going to have to work with. Yeah, this one's going to be a little more challenging. Well, that's fun. Anyways, my point is, I'm going to start here and just see how many wrap it's going to take. You want to overlap about 1/4 of an inch per wrap. That's what they suggest, and I've already lost count because I'm talking to you. Hold on. So I've got about 13 wraps to go from down here up to here. I'm going to overestimate it a little bit. We can always order more if we need to, right? So I'm gonna go get this cut. Basically, you wanna go wrap it around your tube and see roughly how much you're going to need per wrap. So we're about this much per wrap, and you can either just eyeball it, fold it over on itself, or if you want to get close, you can get a tape measure out and measure it. I'm just going to eyeball it and give it a cut. Well, that failed. I'm going to get a tape measure. Try this again. Overlap it a little bit. So we're at about, what, 8 inches maybe? We're about 7 inches. So if I'm doing 14 wraps, 7 inches, do the math there, 70, 28, 98 inches, I think. Close enough. Get my tape measure out. This just looks like it's going so well, right? And there's my distance. Now some people will say you can put tape on the end of here to help it from fraying, and if that becomes an issue for you, you certainly can. So I'm going to go ahead, set this in the water here, get it wet. Again, that's just going to help it be a little more pliable when you're applying it. Then when we are done with this, there is a spray that goes over to kind of seal in the wrap. We'll do that at the very end here. And just make sure everything here is damp and is dripped off. So the fun part is now starting. And again, since I can't get to this spot right under here, I'm going to overwrap it and miss this gap. And we'll come back and we'll just wrap multiple tubes because we're going to have some tight clearances down here. But we do want to take and fold over our front part here a little bit. And that's going to help the wrap as a whole stay in place. And then we just fold it under. Sometimes easier said than done in these small spaces. Alrighty, and here's what we've got to start with. This area here again is going to get wrapped around multiple pipes just because I can't get around everywhere because of how tight these pipes are to each other. But we have a nice wrap up here flowing up to the exit from the engine. Down here again is also going to get wrapped in a big group in this collector. And I'm just going to keep working my way through the other two tubes until we are left with only this last long one down here, which that's going to be what I wrap probably from the top down and then encompass everything down here. So let me get the other tubes done and we'll come back for this last one. Okay, well we've got 3 of our 4 pipes wrapped. I did have to undo and redo and try about 3 or 4 different wrapping patterns before I found something that would allow me to get these 2 pipes wrapped. They were very close together most of the way up. This 3rd pipe, and then also snake some fancy wrapping under this tubing into this tubing so we're not having loose ends hanging out. Let's take a quick look so far. So I think this looks pretty good so far. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. First wrap job for headers, but I think it looks pretty good overall. Once we get this last tube wrapped up and the sealant on here, that spray coating, I think it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead. Hopefully we have enough left in our roll here to complete this last wrap and around the collector. Did go ahead and order 1 more roll for the other header because I know this will not allow me to finish the last tube on both the headers. So, got a little bit extra, I guess, unfortunately, but that'll happen. A couple little snippets here and there from excess. But really, I'm going to go ahead and wet this down and just try and wrap it around and work my way up. And hopefully I have enough to get all the way up to the top of this last tube. Again, we're just wetting it down here. Makes it a little easier for wrapping, a lot more pliable. And then when this dries out, it actually is a little bit stiffer and holds the shape. So that also is a benefit for wetting these down. These rolls I got are the 25-foot lengths. They do have a couple smaller, shorter lengths, some narrower widths. They also have some products for like wrapping your spark plugs, heat tape there as well. A couple of different options for this wrap style, whether it's a black you like or aluminum color or a titanium blend. But we're going with the black. All right, everything is wet. I'm going to start from the bottom. Get one of my big pipe clamps just to hold it around there, hold everything in place for right now to use as a starting point. Well, hey, I actually had enough with about 1 inch left over. So I think overall, let's see here. I don't have any gaps or missed spots. There's a tiny little spot back here between the pipes. But short of doing a whole nother wrap around this and then A, running out of material, and B, going over this area we've already wrapped, creating additional layers, which is not good. I think this thing looks pretty great. Let's take a look here. Alrighty, so everything is wrapped up. We've got our clamps here, and like I say, once this is all said and done and sprayed with the sealer and everything, maybe I'll take these off and just put regular bands on here. The kit does not come with long enough ones to go around the collectors down here, only for the tops here. So maybe once, like I said, once it's all dried, I'll take these pipe clamps off and put on the other metal ones. But I just don't see them holding that firm. So that will be told in time. For now, I'm going to let this dry so I can come back and put the sealer on it and wait for another roll for our header for the driver's side. And once that is done, we'll come back, we'll get these things sprayed up, sealed up, and be good to go. All right, everybody, it's been a minute. We are back. We finally got our DEI high temp coating for our long tube headers on the Challenger. And really, it's self-explanatory, so there's not a whole lot to say. Just shake the can, spray it on, make sure you coat everything, a couple of light coats, no need to saturate it. Just basic spray paint. So I'm going to quick start this one, and we'll come back and show you the finished product. Alrighty, well, I've got the passenger one drying behind me here. And again, a couple of 2-3 light coats over it just to make all the little shiny parts of the wrap dull and black is really what you're looking for. No, like I said, don't need to cake it on there. That's not gonna do a whole lot. We're just trying to seal this in, make sure it's all covered and a good coverage on it. And we'll end up with a final product looking like this. Now again, I am not a pro at wrapping headers. I'd be a very novice, I would say, but I do think this thing turned out pretty well. It did take me a handful of times to unwrap and rewrap a few different areas, but in the end, I think it looks really good. It's gonna go back on the car, back on the engine, well, behind me here. So let's just try and tag this thing onto the engine real quick to see how it looks. This one is drying, so we're not going to play with that for a while, but we can at least close this out and the engine chapter of this project with getting this back on the car, or back on the engine, at least for right now, because these do not go in attached to the engine when it goes back in the car. Alrighty, and here is one of these headers on the engine, and I think this whole dress-up project really turned out well. Got a little bit of touch-up left to do, like I said. Here, if you haven't watched our whole rebuild or kind of refresh video on the 440 here, go ahead and click the link above somewhere to check that out. And yeah, I think these headers are gonna look pretty good along the, yeah. I mean, really, once they're in the car, all you see is pretty much that. They're shoehorned in there pretty good. But out of the car, I think they look pretty nice. And I think that's gonna wrap this one up for us. We've got this other header here, it's gonna dry. And we'll get all this engine stuff covered up, protected, because we've still got a lot of body work to do. The inner fender, steering box needs to get rebuilt, brake swap on the whole front end, suspension, get the engine bay painted up, wiring in there, just get that whole front end tidied up. But it's still, it's April, so it's getting warmer, but it's not warm enough to be down in the shop yet. So I think I'm gonna have to plug away. Now you can see behind me here, I've got a bunch of, I'm hiding. There we go. Got a bunch of little parts I've pulled off the Plymouth and work on what we can work on because, like I said, still a little cold to work down in the shop and bring tools and supplies and welders down there. And I don't like working when it's 40 degrees. So, like I said, we're gonna just keep bringing stuff up to the garage here until weather permits. And again, thank you for watching. Hit subscribe if you have not yet. And yeah, the next video on the Dodge here is going to be working on that front engine bay, the metal work, the whole, like I said, steering, brake swap, yada, yada, yada. And in the meantime, we're probably gonna be working on that 38 Plymouth. So until then, thank you for watching this video and have a great day. Bye-bye.